Yeah, I want to say hi to Eric too. Hi, Eric.
Hey, Eric. Bruce, you want to say hello to Eric?
Hey, Eric.
Ralph?
Thanks for joining us. Eric, get off my lawn.
There you go. Sparky 107 wants to know how can he get to watch a modeler's life or listen to a modeler's life? How can he do that?
If he goes to amodelerslife.com, there's links there to the free site, which is Libsyn and iTunes, and there's other. You can get it on Google Play. He can get it on TuneIn and Spotify. But if he goes to the website, amodelerslife.com, there's links right there.
Zappa Gap.
Yeah. It's a CA type clue. Kevin said flex file plastic weld. And Ron was saying MEK.
No, I can use. No, I can weld with acetone. That works. It's beautiful. But I can't print this job in ABS. It has to be PLA.
So what I have here is, you'll see that I've got 9 different LEDs on here, and they're just kind of slowly changing. One comes on, one comes off. You know, it's kind of a slow pace, and we could sit here all night watching this very slowly go. But you know, if you actually had these in windows in your different buildings, or even one in each different building, it doesn't even have to be windows in the same building, then you'd want it to go this slow or maybe even slower. And that's about the only thing I'm going to have to show you in the sketch. So we're going to go back to that real quick. Actually, let's build this thing first. So I just put it together so that you could see what we're going to end up doing. And what I'm going to do is just unplug my Arduino and tear this thing apart real quick.
Well, howdy. Here we are on another Thursday. Yeah, we're getting some people in here. Let's see who all we kind of got in here on the chat. We got Dave BNSF, N-Scale, Jaffa, how you doing? Down in Australia, Brian, Buddy Long. He said he had a 13-hour day. He said it's nice to relax and listen to my favorite YouTube channel. Yeah, thank you, buddy. We'll give you a big star. Yeah, here's Dwight. He's in there.
Hey, Dwight.
Yeah, Sparky's there. Dave, how you, Jason? I think Jason had to work tonight. Yeah, we got Mr. Lord and Mr. Bob over here on the panel. Anybody wants to come on the panel, just go to the links in the posting. Well, a few more people get in here, and then we'll talk about G Plus leaving us April the 2nd.
Not April the 1st, because we wouldn't want to be, fooled or anything.
Yeah.
We can't do it then. We go, make it the 2nd, so it's actually real.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right now, I can't post any shares automatically from my YouTube page to Google Plus or Twitter. That's now disabled. You have to actually share it to those manually. So that's another thing that you can't do now.
Yeah. Yeah, Jerry just jumped in. How you doing? The thing's unlocked, Jason. I'll let you in anyway. I don't know why it's making you wait. The room's unlocked. Mr. Joe.
How's everybody doing tonight?
Not bad.
Good. Yeah. I'm feeling better. That's good.
That's good.
Mm-hmm.
Was everybody working on tonight?
Do what?
Was everybody working on tonight?
Well,
hey, Cabana Bob.
Nothing currently, but
Well, I was over at John's today and worked on his layout just a little bit. Got the lift up in. Actually works.
Yeah.
That's one of the hardest things to do besides a helix, in my opinion.
I don't know. The way I did his, it was really easy. I looked at a bunch of videos and watching how people were doing them. And, yeah, it wasn't bad at all. I actually made a base. And I have it cut out for where the bridge part is. Fit up in there. And then what I did was I built a couple of blocks to where the hinges are actually just, I don't know, maybe 10, 15 thousandths over the top of the track. Put the hinges on there. But what happened was that the blocks, when I glued them in, kind of moved a little bit. So the center of the hinge, instead of being right over the crack between the bridge and the base, it slid more towards the bridge. So now when you lift it up, it actually kind of comes out and then lifts up. So I can bring the track, I can have the track butted up against each other and open it up, and it never binds or anything.
How did you connect the track?
Do what?
How did you connect the circuit with the track? What method did you use?
None yet.
Never yet.
I'm going to wire it. That's what I'll do. I'll hardwire it on the hinge side. Just drop a couple of feeders off the bridge track. Run them under the layout and reconnect them to the main line.
Right. I'm going to step back for 1 second.
Let's see, OORail.com has jumped in. CSX Rail Line Productions. Double O said he's doing well. Somebody asked him how he's doing. So watching a live stream while he's 3D printing some 00 scale buildings. That'll be good.
Yeah. Your mic is cut off over there.
Who?
He was just sitting there yapping along.
Oh, Joe.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, don't tell him I did that. Nah, just kidding. We can't do that. Want to, but he can't do it. Like Robin Williams said in the movie.
Wait a minute, I can mute his sound. I just didn't do it.
You guys are supposed to do.
I know Sparky wasn't talking about me because I didn't send him no crushed coal. He said it came through customs. Hey, Ron Strange and things. How you doing?
What's going on, Ron?
What's up, Ron? Dude, I love his videos. That's all I watch.
Really?
Yeah.
Come back to me.
Yeah, I'm lying a little bit. Still with
the they bring it in a little bit. What's up, boys?
Hey.
This is my friend Jason. He's part of the Tennessee Central Model Railroad Club, as well as the Tennessee Valley Model Railroad Club, and he is an N scaler.
all the way.
Yay!
What do you model?
Kodachrome.
Santa Fe.
Well, these cars, I painted them in brown, but these are going to be filled with blast furnaces.
Oh, yeah.
And these are going to be more these cars are more kind of newer.
Yeah.
But the 1941, these more 1940, 1948. So.
Now, once you get those weathered up, you gonna replicate that derailment they had in, what was that, Wyoming, with the coal train?
Yeah. The derailment?
Yeah.
Yeah.
What about that?
Something about it.
I was asking Joe once he got done with his gondolas if he's going to replicate that derailment.
The way my layout looks right now, might as well because no track down.
Absolutely.
Yeah, well, I was posting the show. I noticed you, started getting some framework up.
Finally, and Jason's been helping me along the way.
It's getting there.
Yeah.
He's my supervisor.
Oh, yeah.
Sam Cool.
Hey,
How you doing?
I'm doing all right. How are you guys doing?
Not bad.
One guy that lives out in California, that does Union Pacific current. What's his name?
No voicemail. in Panama. Really? Yeah, it's in Panama.
Oh, I was probably down in California because he's always modeling California.
Yeah, Sparky said that they had a derailment up there in Canada, Canadian Pacific.
Because, you know, I'm really not into the modeling process yet. I'm just there for collecting trains. So, but
Right.
I like the curiosity.
Joe.
Yeah.
When y'all talking, you have to mute your mic because it picks it all up being in that small room.
You got it.
Mr. Greg just popped in, so did Michael.
I have, since my last week I was on, I have made a discovery that if you have Pico Code 83 track and Walther's turnouts, if you have Atlas rail joiners, they fit. But if you have Pico rail joiners, they don't fit because the rails for Shinohara are too wide. I found that Atlas will fit both. But I want to try Walther's before I buy Atlas because I don't have it.
There's nothing wrong with Atlas rail joiners. Just get them.
Yeah, you just gotta make sure they're good and tight. Big Bill put up here. I replicate derailments every time I operate.
I actually had one tonight. 7.5 feet off the floor. Going around a curve, and all of a sudden, boom, like 6 or 7 of those N-scale cars fell over and stayed on the shelf, which was good. And it was all because one of my cars, the wheels aren't spinning freely enough, and so it was too far back in the chain of the train, and so it put too much drag at the back, so it kind of like I grabbed it and it went folded in.
Yeah, I wanted to take a shortcut across the curve.
Yeah. So I was like, I got to pull that one off, and I'm gonna have to replace the truck, I think, or both trucks on it.
What manufacturer, Bob?
It was Microtrains. Yeah, it happens every once in a while. But actually, I'll go get it.
Well, while you're doing that, we'll just talk a little bit about this G Plus situation. As everybody knows, G Plus is going away permanently April the 2nd. And just want to let everybody know that doesn't affect YouTube model builders, because we do have Facebook and we do have YouTube. Both Facebook and YouTube is still called YouTube Model Builders. So you won't have G Plus to post on, but you can go post at YouTube or the Facebook page, whichever you want to use. So people said there's other mediums that they've kind of started looking at that they like, so they've told us what they are. We are starting to check into those also. I think one was called MeWe, something like that. But yeah, if there is anything on the G Plus channel that you've posted up or you want to keep, they're saying go in and definitely download it, so you'll have your own copy of it, because come April the 2nd, it all starts disappearing. In fact, they've already started turning some of their services off. Bob was telling us about some of the share services that he'd been using are no longer working.
Yeah, if you're posting videos to YouTube, you had that option to put a post out on Twitter or Google Plus, and then your video would go with that. They turned that off at the end of January. So you have to manually share to Twitter or Google Plus now. But pretty much you're not going to be able to do anything in Google Plus pretty soon.
Yeah, both our YouTube and our Facebook channels are, alive and healthy.
Mm-hmm. So this was the Microtrains car that I was having problems with. That orange weathered one. I don't know if the paint got on the wheels or something like that, but they don't freely spin as much as they should. At least on this side, it seemed like the trucks would kind of grab on one side or the other. So, just gonna replace them.
Are they plastic, Bob?
Yeah, they're plastic.
Yep.
I think one of the sides of the truck is not quite straight alignment with the other end. The other end, is pretty snug inside there, but the other side was loose, so the truck goes back. The actual wheels go back and forth inside the truck, so it seems a little bit too loose. So you get a little bit of a bind there, I think. Yeah, not a hard fix, just darn it, I have to make another one.
Yeah.
Have to fix something else,
Hey, we'll be railroading.
Yeah. I mean, I currently on my railroad have autofocus here. There we go. I have a whole train full of weathered cars, which I forgot to post on Wednesday because I was a little preoccupied Wednesday, but I was going to post a weathered Wednesday video. So, like 25 cars being pulled, all box cars.
Yeah.
Good idea.
Yeah. Yeah, they're all Microtrains weathered box cars.
Yeah, a bunch of them were doing a F unit Friday, wasn't it?
Yeah, front end Friday, FEFs.
Yeah.
You got side shots Saturday. You got there's a whole bunch of them really. Somebody comes up with something. I said, well, a weathered Wednesday is what I was going to call it.
Yeah. Hey.
There's a bunch of different groups out there that have some of those little themes. Every once in a while, put something up. But one of the things I was working on this week was a inventory database for all my train stuff, so I could keep track of what I've got, take a picture with the product and the case that it goes in, because putting it back, finding the case that it goes with was a pain. Like, what was the label on this one? It's like, okay, which one? What? Okay, look at the database. Okay, I got this picture. Oh, that's the case. We'll find it. At least I could figure it all out. Then it also kind of tracks, how much I may have paid for it, what it might be worth, the road number, and all that stuff. I may.
I hope your wife's going to see that database.
Well, I already told her. It says, if I die before you, you have to get somebody who knows what they're doing to sell my stuff.
Yeah.
Because don't sell it for what I told you I paid for it. Even though I said it was free, I probably lied. There's a value to them. So I was just taking photographs with my camera up on my layout. Haven't gotten all those that I've taken put in the database yet. Still trying to develop it, see what works, what don't work. How's the editing capability of it? Does it flow well? Can I build a report out of it? Because I'd like to be able to print out a report or something that says, okay, here's what I have. I can take it to a train show. I'm getting to that point where I have such a big inventory, I forget. I'll look at something and I went, oh, that looks cool. I don't think I have that. I get home, I have it. Oh, I thought it was cool when I bought it the first time. So I've done that a couple times.
Yeah.
Thinking, I don't know. I don't think I have that. But I did.
We got a question here from William Sullivan. He says, guys, I'm wondering if there is a way to set snowflock without using alcohol as a setup for scenic glue. Well, it just so happens that Mr. Lloyd over here on the panel has got a snow scene he has been working on. Lloyd, are you there?
Yes, I am.
Can you move up to the microphone a little closer so we can hear you better if you want to answer that?
Okay, is this better?
Oh,
Yep.
yeah, that's a lot better. Thank you. I know you had to take your feet out of the chair and put them on the floor.
Yeah, exactly. I use Woodland Scenic snow. And I don't use alcohol at all. If you watch a Woodland Scenics video, they spray diluted glue, white glue. So that's what I did.
Okay.
Well, it looks nice.
Hopefully that'll help William out.
I picked up some of that Woodland Scenic snow as well. I got this area over here to the side there that pretty much has been white for like 2 years. And I was like, I got to put some trees on it at some point. It was actually supposed to be my Jim in Michigan Memorial Mountain that I have yet to finish. And so I'll probably put a little snow scene on part of that, since it's already white.
Basically, you gotta have a base. For the base, I use the flex paste that Woodland Scenic has. And that's mainly to do like your where the snow accumulates.
Mm-hmm. So you basically made some little hills underneath the snow to make it look like snow drifts?
Yep.
Okay.
You just have to make sure that they're all going the same way.
Do you do that on top of the roof?
Yeah, I'm not finished with the roof. The roof I just finished. Well, I didn't finish. I did the flex paste. I still have to add some more because when it dries, it kind of shrinks. And I still have to finish the joints for the roof of the old building. And once that's done and all my paste is done, then I'm going to sprinkle the snow all over the place.
How you doing, Bob? I saw you sneak in.
When I signed in earlier, I was still on a cell phone with a friend of mine, so I couldn't show my face. But yeah, it's doing okay. Just still plugging away here, trying to keep up with what's going on. Ooh, another person.
There comes Ron, trains and things.
Hey, can you hear me?
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
Good. I was having trouble with my microphone the other night. Nice to know that it's working this time. How's everybody doing?
Doing pretty good.
Yeah.
Good.
Doing well, Ron. How's the weather down there in Kansas City?
It is cold and icy.
Same here.
But we're not getting any more new ice now. It is going to get colder. I'm actually going to Kansas City tomorrow. I'm part of a ops weekend, all in-scale ops weekend up there this weekend, and it's been a little iffy, but it looks like it's going to cooperate. It's going to be cold but sunny. So,
Whose house is it going to be at? Or
oh, there's 5 different layouts.
Okay.
don't know if you're familiar with Kansas City N-scalers, but you would be. John Atchison is one of them.
Yeah.
John Percy, Joe Casper are the three that I'm operating at, and I know all three of them. Overholtzer's Mike, his is on it, and then another one that I'm not familiar with.
Yeah, I did a video of John Atchison's when I was down there for the N-Scale convention a couple years ago.
Oh yeah, in Overland Park.
Yeah, it was pretty good.
I operated on John's last summer during the NMRA. Nice layout.
Yeah.
And John's just a nice guy. That always helps too, you know. He just.
Well, I try.
Well, I know you do.
Yeah, I kind of wanted to have a train going around my stairwell too. You know.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, that would have been awesome.
Yeah, we got a guy up here. He's on the Piedmont pilgrimage. Everybody is the biggest draw on his layout is his bathroom downstairs, where the layout's at. You go in the bathroom. There are 3 tracks going across the wall. Because layouts on both sides of the bathroom, so you just cut holes in there and put the track all the way through.
Yeah.
As long as he doesn't run one of those, you know, cameras that's, you know, on the front of the train.
Yeah. Especially if it's wireless, it just broadcasts everywhere.
Right. Exactly. Live from.
Yeah.
So we were working on, Ron?
I am in the first stages of ballasting this stupid yard. I'll love it again. I love the yard again when this ballasting is done. Ballasting is not my favorite job, and ballasting a yard even more so.
Absolutely.
But I literally, well, you won't be able to see it with this camera, but I'm detailing the track in this yard. So I painted all the track yesterday, and then between last night and today, of course, I had with ice. I was off work yesterday and today, and so I literally spent 8 hours hand painting individual ties to kind of differentiate them and and kind of detail the track. And in 8 hours, I managed to do half of the yard. And I finally said, okay, I got to do something else. So I decided I'd start doing some ballast. And if it drove me to ballasting, it was tedious.
You don't use the camouflage spray paint? You go individually like that?
I didn't use the camouflage spray paint. I did airbrush the track.
Okay.
But I just used acrylic paint. But then everything is all uniform. I painted it all railroad tie brown, but I wanted it. Well, let's see. I'll see if I'll make you sick. Let's see if you can see this. So get down here. Can you see well enough to see the differentiation in the ties that way? Otherwise, they're not. Otherwise they're just all brown. It's just all uniform. And I just took a combination of some lighter brown and some gray paint and mixed it here and there and just painted random ties. So most of them are still brown, but painted some random ones just to kind of make it look a little more.
Is this going to be a future video?
It is indeed.
Right.
You're getting the preview here.
Yeah.
Well, Rock Island 652 goes in-scale joint bars run.
Yeah. I'm gonna tell you, if you all saw my video from this week, I about went blind coloring individual in-scale bricks on that little apartment building. So yeah, I can just imagine the in-scale fish plates. That'd be fun. We all know who would love that.
Yeah.
Who would that be?
You tell me, Ralph.
And you only put them on one side.
In fact, I didn't get to watch this show live last week, but I saw the replay and I saw your all's conversation about that just last week.
They just kept on weathering.
Yeah, I missed last week's.
You played it smart, Joey.
Other things.
Yeah.
Yeah, Andy said, "Oh, come on."
Oh, Andy's in here. Of course he is.
Yeah, he's in the chat. That means he's still at work.
Hurry up! 2 or 3 more people need to get in here, so he can't get in.
Dave, BNSF in scale semi-retired. He said, "I think Andy's coming over to Ron's to help with the tie plates."
If it wasn't in scale, I could see that, but
You can't lock me out. Oh man.
You gonna be okay there, Bob?
Yeah, I'm just kind of
tired,
yawning. Yeah, I've had a rough week.
Bob, did you all get this ice storm up there?
A little bit. Wasn't so bad.
It wasn't as bad here as it could have been. I think Kansas City got it worse.
Yeah, we had a little bit of moisture, and we have mostly snow, fluffy snow today.
Yeah. It was wild here because last night we were getting freezing rain and sleet, and it was thundering. And 50 miles away, they had a tornado warning.
Mm-hmm.
It was like 20 degrees here, and it was like 60 degrees there. It was really, really wild night.
And somebody suggested that, hey, there's a job opening down there at Whiteman Air Force Base. I'm like, no.
Whiteman. Hey, Whiteman is like 5 miles from where I grew up.
Yeah. I was like, there's going to be tornadoes there. There's nothing around there. I got to drive a long way to get to a train store.
Now I resent that just a little.
Well, I mean, I got a friend of mine who's stationed there, so he comes home all the time, visit his family on the weekends. And like, that's a 4-hour drive one way.
That is true.
Yeah. But he's a young kid, so he can do that kind of stuff.
Yeah, that literally is my childhood home.
Yeah. Andy's comment to that was fish plates are easy, and at least in HO they do make a difference, and you can definitely see them. Not trying to.
I think you could see them in scale, but you have to want to see them.
Yeah. You got to have track right next to the edge, and you're down there looking at all the other detail. There's a fish plate there.
Hand out magnifying glasses as they come in.
Yeah. Uh-huh. And a list of things to look for. What's a fish plate?
Right.
Oh, no idea. Is it near the pond that you made? No.
Yeah, they're looking at the creek for a fish.
and the picnic table, for plates. Is there a fish on that plate over there? Like, no.
Yeah, it's perfect.
Mm-hmm.
Perfect.
I would do that.
Yeah, one of the guys here in the Piedmont Pilgrimage Tour, on his layout, that's what he does. He's got a thing that he gives all the kids, paper that's got a list on there of things to look for on the layout, and they check it off. see how much they found.
Yeah, this one's going on my layout at some point.
Bigfoot.
I've got a Sasquatch hidden on mine.
Mm-hmm.
And I have Spider-Man and Batman.
Mm.
Oh, cool. Right now, I have a couple of Imperial Walkers, but I don't plan to leave them there.
Oh, I have an Imperial Walker. It's up on my layout. It has no head. It fell off.
Oh.
Because the only way to hook it up was with a Band-Aid. Or not a band, a rubber band.
Uh-huh.
And the rubber band just got so brittle it broke, and so the whole thing just kind of fell out of the body. So it's just sitting up there without a body. It's got a head on the ground and the body just standing there. Train's quiet. It's extremely out of scale, though.
Yeah, Andy posted it up here. James Lincoln has the best way to describe this. He disagrees with the statement, "You can't see it, so you don't model it," with the response, "You didn't model it, so you can't see it."
Yep. So I finished my suspended bridge the other day.
Yeah?
Yeah. Got a video out on my channel on it, on the whole build.
But no pictures
some
here.
parts I left out.
I've missed that. I'll have to check that out.
I got video. I can point right up to it if you want.
All right. Well, yeah. I mean, you're going to talk about it. Show it.
Might as well. Yeah. Let's see. Zoom in my page here. Oh, okay. That whole white bridge is suspended by cabling. And it's basically jewelry wire. The same kind of stuff you make beaded necklaces and jewelry and stuff out of. You can get that at Hobby Lobby, Walmart, all that good stuff. And basically all the backdrops are just printed pictures I got off the internet and printed them on a laser copier at work and put them on some foam core.
Oh, okay.
And then I have got some eye hooks. Well, actually screw eyes right here. Screwed them into the bracing that I had behind all these. Threaded them through, so it kind of looks like a little guitar, I guess. But I got all these little tiny eye hooks all along the outside of it, and I got 4 sets of wires going to all of them.
Huh.
So the train rides right there on the edge of disaster.
Don't run that one box car.
No, it is. Well, it was okay. It came up just fine because it was leaning to the inside, so it's not too bad. But all the wires would catch it. And then I kind of got this one end down here, stretched out mountain, and a tunnel going through that side, and another tunnel on it behind the building there. So, yeah. Pretty much finished my scene to a certain degree. There's always something more to do, though. And then I'm in the process of stringing up some more Christmas lights on the inside of the helix. So I got it all around the bottom part. I need to get a couple more strings to go all the way up. Because once I had these panels up on the top here, I couldn't see a dang thing inside there.
Yeah, yeah.
So I said, well, hey, I got these Christmas lights. I'll just throw them in there. And it works pretty good. just those lights alone, the 200 lights, kind of light it up well enough to see all the way up. But something else to do.
Yeah.
Better use the lights instead of leave them sitting in a box forever.
Yeah, I like that passenger car there. Using that for what? Just a bridge, walk bridge?
Yeah. It's supposed to be a drive-through bridge. So it's a little, observation car.
Yeah.
Drive through, look up and see the waterfall going by. Kind of neat.
Yeah.
And I even got some lights inside my tunnel cliff road. Basically, kind of looks like it's a car headlights inside there.
Uh-huh.
And I got another one up there as well. Probably should have put that one in a different spot, but it looks good when all the lights are off.
Yeah.
No, Bob, I love your Helix.
Yeah. Thanks.
How many feet? What's the width of your Helix?
The whole frame that it's sitting on is 4 foot by 4 foot.
Okay.
So I basically have a 22-inch radius track.
In scale.
Yep.
Roger wants to do a 3x3.
And it's 15 layers.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Bob, what would be your opinion? One of our friends wants to do a Helix 3x3. What do you think about that?
3 foot by 3 foot?
For what scale?
Yes.
In
scale. Yeah.
You can do it.
But he's trying to run steam engine.
Steam engines ain't gonna work.
Yeah. That's what we've tried to inform him about, and he doesn't believe it.
We'll work on it.
Yeah.
I mean, it may work depending on the steam engine, but it ain't gonna look right, and you can't pull a lot up it because your radius is too tight.
Of course.
Yeah. And you're just gonna derail on the inside.
He's running big boys with 120 Tropicana cars, so
it better be at 1%.
And articulated locomotives, the reason that the prototype used them, and the same applies to models, the reason they used them was to navigate very tight curve radius and for power, but a lot of the reasons that some of the railroads like the Western Maryland, my beloved Norfolk and Western, etc., headed toward articulated locomotives, especially for mine runs and such, is those branch lines were so tight and steep grades and sharp curves. Articulateds were specifically designed for that. But not everything scales perfectly. And we have to remember, I don't care how much attention I put to try to get everything to 187.1 as much as possible. Gravity is still 1-to-1. Friction is still 1-to-1. There are still real-world forces you have to fight. And
you have to think about the manufacturers, whether they weighted that locomotive properly. If it's only over the back set of drivers more than it is the front set of drivers, it's not going to pull evenly.
But you got to work them. So, and I've got some tungsten powder. Tungsten's much denser than lead, much heavier than lead, more expensive. But for certain applications, like putting it on top, what I do is put it on the pilot truck out front to the tracking truck or the lead truck. Improves the performance tremendously, which I am an absolute advocate for weight. I think that solves, at least 5 or 6 out of 10 model railroading problems we have. It's just add more weight to it. Stack it up. I mean, my freight cars are 13 to 16 ounces a piece. I load up freight cars something fierce, and I designed the layout with 2+% grades that run 30-car trains. So, and it'll work. But there's another thing I want to draw your attention to. John Allen, famous model railroader, one of the greats of our hobby, probably remained one of the top couple greats in the hobby for forever. Had a really nice little chart that compared grade to curve radius. So if you had a 2% grade, that's 2% on straight track. But a 2% grade on a 30-inch radius made it equivalent of 2.25%. But on a 28% or a 28-inch radius, it's 2.5%. whatever. It adds resistance. That's all weight, or that's all grade is adding as well, is an increased effect from gravity. That resistance has the same effect. So the tighter your radius, it is an additive effect to grade. So people are like, well, pulling a helix, it's 2.5%. Should be fine, no problem. And it's 24 inches or whatever. Well, you have an effective grade of 3.5% or what have you.
Mm-hmm.
And you know how he figured that out? He actually had a car that had one of the couplers connected to a scale.
I've got a fish scale with a little coupler on it. That's how I figured out how much weight I could put in cars. I was watching or following Mike Compfolo talk about this and basically convert Joe Fugate to a believer in this, massive overweight. And I listened to him and Mike Rose argue about the weight. Mike Rose said, "Well, you'll burn out locomotives, or burn out motors and locomotives." And he says, "Well, they'll just slip. They'll just spin." And he said, "They don't pull that much anyway. It's not like I'm running trains for hours continuously. They make one trip across the layout, takes a half hour, and they'll slip if if there's too much weight for them to pull." So far, he said, "I've been doing it for years and it hasn't been a problem." And Joe Fugate, after operating on his layout, and they videoed it for Trainmasters TV a few years ago. And I asked Joe about it at the most recent convention in Kansas City. I said, "I'm just curious, where do you stand 3 years later?" I was kind of chatting with him anyway. "Where do you stand 3 years later on the idea of overweight?" He says, "I think I'm a convert. I haven't actually put that much work into my layout, recently, but now that I'm building the new one," he says, I think I will probably weight enough cars to make a train and see how viable it would be in my case." Because he said, you cannot argue with how much better everything tracks. And in my case, it's a godsend because I use scale flanges and scale wheel treads because it's all Proto 87. That weight and self-equalizing trucks, it tracks better than any RP25 you could possibly do.
I got a question here from Mike. Let me get back up here and find it real quick. Mike Lambertino, he said, "Hey guys," he said, "Question, what is the difference in having a regular yard and a staging yard? I'm going to run operations. Is it necessary for the two?" And a little ways down here, I think he said he had plenty of room for both.
Okay. My first instinct to tell anybody building a layout period is I personally, it's a matter of preference, personally wouldn't build a railroad without a staging yard. The very first thing I would do if I walked into a space or had a certain amount of space is figure out where staging is going to go. That's the most controlling factor you want. I don't like calling staging a staging yard. I don't call it a staging yard. I refer to staging as staging. Staging could be serial. There are people with helixes that just stage trains one after another. Staging is not, in yard terminology, it is not a yard. It does happen that we build them like prototype yards, largely with yard ladders, yard throats, etc. sometimes or often. But we also sometimes just stack up trains. So another consideration is that there are a lot of types of real yards. There are classification yards. There are marshalling yards. There are, industrial or industry yards for feeding certain industries. Paper plants, coal mines, etc. may have yards dedicated to that industry or at a dock. But there's a lot of types of yards. A classification yard, what we put on our layouts, is often really hard to truly replicate in a model form without so much selective compression that it's far from being prototypical in actual operation, let alone cosmetics. I did not build a true yard on my layout. I have an interchange yard that interchanges with another railroad, and I have staging that is both somewhat of a yard and multiple tracks, but is also going to be serial. I'll stage trains up behind each other. So you don't have to think about a yard that it just has to be a dozen tracks wide and a yard thrown on either side like a prototype through yard. It can be a various, whatever it takes, some place to put trains. That could be an elevator. It could be, these up and down tracks that you use a garage door opener. Wherever you can get trains away from the visible layout and bring them onto the layout or to stage them ahead of coming onto the layout in an organized, orchestrated way that matches the way trains would enter your section of the model railroad from the rest of it.
Also, track planners said the staging yard could be used to show that the train has left the area going somewhere else.
Yep.
But
just a place to get your land.
Yeah, like you said, Andy, it makes a good staging yard because that way you can stage your trains and they're coming back in from another location.
Just get it off the layout, get it off the visible layout, and even if you have a single track and you break them down real quickly or something, if you have mole staging where you have a dedicated person standing back there, you pull the train to the track, somebody breaks it down real quick, puts another train together ahead of it, something so that they're not on the visible layout, and so that when the time comes for them to enter the layout according to the schedule or the sequence of trains or however you are handling train movement. I think that's a big problem in our operations conversations is I ask people, how are you going to operate your layout? With car cards. That is not layout operation. Not at all. That's a car forwarding system. That has nothing to do with when do trains move. What do those cars tell you about how to move trains? So whatever system you use to handle train movement, track warrants, TTNTO, whatever, there is some control there that says when trains need to enter the layout. And how you want to operate is a controlling factor for your staging. Now, true visible yards is a wholly different thing, and I think it's one of the biggest mistakes that model railroaders who are building smaller layouts make is to try to incorporate a classification yard. That seems like the most railroady thing to do, and it's virtually impossible to pull off unless you've got a massive, or a reasonable amount of space, or you dedicate the entirety of your space to it. You have a massive amount of equipment, quite a few operators. It's tough. It's a little more plausible at N scale. Virtually impossible at O. A lot of uncomfortable compromises at HO to build a classification yard.
Yeah, you got to have a hump. You got to have a lot of tracks. You got all sorts of stuff. Run around tracks. You got main lines going through. You got all sorts of stuff. You know, to make it look prototypical. I think it. You know, you can call it a classification. You can call it a staging yard. You can call the whole thing just whatever you want to. It's all staging. You're just going to sit there and just waiting to run trains that you made up. That's fine. You just classified it.
But a staging yard is not visible.
Right.
Staging yard is not visible. Now, they do have these visible staging yard things, but in my opinion, it breaks from concepts that were so far set back in the hobby pre-John Allen in the 1940s when model railroading was first starting to do anything close to prototypical operations beyond a circular track. Frank, starts with a Z, whatever. One of the earliest model railroaders that was famous in the magazines. He talked about the railroad as a stage and the trains being actors on the stage, and he thought of it that way. That's the concept. Staging is just off. Just off. Doesn't matter how you do it. Just hide the sucker.
Yeah.
And there are a lot of other kinds of yards, depending on what type of railroading you're interested in, that are worth considering. Marshalling yards are fascinating if you're dealing with a commodity industry, coal or whatever. That's just a place where many mine runs go out to local mines, bring the stuff back to that yard, then they assemble complete trains to head to the dock or the power plant or wherever they're headed, paper plants, etc. That's a great industry that's a great a better type of yard, in my opinion, for a commodities railroad. But if you like a mix of all kinds of freight, then a small town yard where the through train comes through, drops a block of cars that were preset by wherever the class yard was behind, drop the block, and then the local picks those cars and takes them out on the road to those particular industries. My instinct is that is more aligned with the types of yards that Bill Baronic, the track planner, arranges for his track plans of smaller areas, and I think he does a really good job. I don't think he doesn't necessarily say that verbally to people, but that's quite typical of the way he speaks about how to operate. A road train comes in, some amount of cars are taken out, or maybe the whole thing, and then they're taken by a local out on the line. Although I think it would be more convincing if you had a complete train of 20 cars or 10 cars, whatever, and you took a quarter of those cars off, let the rest of the train move on.
I mean, my yard is basically, sort of a staging yard, because I use it as a staging yard. Just sits there, and got some long trains that don't run, but I got a lot of little trains that I may run periodically and switch it out. So it's an operational yard, but it's also kind of staging because I don't always run everything that's in the yard. I just some of it's there just for looks.
Well, you're operating it like a
Yeah.
staging yard,
Yeah.
but you've seeded it like a classification yard,
Right.
or at least an arrivals departure yard.
Right, right. I have multiple uses in it, you know.
Sure.
Got some industry in right off the yard. I got a run around that goes all the way around for a reverse loop. You know, everything's kind of tied in, goes over to the roundhouse. So everything's kind of centered around the yard at that level to be ready to go up the helix and to the main line.
What I could think of a good way to actually describe this, a staging yard will never, never, never have loose pieces of rolling stock in it.
Right.
A locomotive or consist of locomotives, a cut of cars with a caboose on the rear if it's of a caboose era. It is a complete train that is, in theory, moving somewhere many, many miles away, headed towards you, or has left and is headed somewhere away from you. It is a complete train, never loose cars. And a classification yard or marshalling yard or industrial yard or whatever will never have complete trains in it. They will always separate the power to take it back to the house, or to a house track at least for servicing. So a visible yard, classification yard, always loose equipment, power separated at the house. They're moving those individual pieces of equipment around, etc. A staging yard is only complete trains that are done. That the only time they'd ever be broken down is, you know, with an 050 or whatever between operating sessions to restage.
Yeah, just, you know, you got industries out there that just have all these tankers just sitting there on all these tracks waiting to be filled or something. So those are kind of, you know, warehouse yards, I would call them. You know, just they're sitting there waiting to be used. Industry
yards, because certain industries like so things have changed. Era makes a big difference in this too. In the modern day, railroads are just about entirely driven by unit train. There's a few examples of bulk freight to ports and, you know, heavy equipment, etc. You know, the Boeing train, you know, some of that stuff that are exotics in this equation. Generally speaking, today trains move as a unit, and generally there are bills of lading that represent 90 cars. For example, there's a piece of paper represents the entirety of that train as a block. In 1950, when I modeled, and for many years after that, if there were 90 cars in that train, there were 90 pieces of paper. There were 90 individual freight components that were being dealt with. They were not treated or thought of as a block, except for the purpose of fleeting or convoying trains, whatever another. That's the only rare example where they were talked about as a block. And when they're talked about as a block, that's not the freight, that's power and everything on the train as a block when it's moving. But they were treated individually. And, you know, staging yards and true yard do follow the rules that I was talking about with the breaking down of equipment, etc. And you'll see much more industry-based yards these days, since an entire block of train of equipment will move from the shipper to the recipient in its entirety without ever stopping for anything except for engine servicing or power swap, or to move that block from one railroad to another if it's being interchanged. And now a lot of these railroads, like that one out close to you, Bob, they've got, watching this the other day, they've got through house tracks, basically. They have engine servicing where they do not separate the power from the train. It is on the pass-through tracks. They pull up, they stop, they service the equipment, they may change crews, and the entirety of the train never disconnects, and they head right on out.
Right.
That block is never broken down.
Yeah, that's pretty much the yard out there in Iowa before they come across. It's pretty much set up like that too.
And that's becoming the common. I mean, containerization has helped this, but also it helped with the movement of what commodity goods are still moved, or coal, etc. If you go back in time, anything prior to, you know, it depends on the railroad, of course, but I think, you know, the mid-'80s is when that was starting to seriously transition. As the railroads consolidated, there was a move to better efficiency, and that changed railroads a lot. I mean, go look at Google satellite photos, or, you know, Google overhead view for a while. Go back and look through the years and see what's happened to rail yards. You know, prior to the mid-'80s, you had small yards all over the place where trains were broken down and reassembled, et cetera, et cetera. That is not happening very much at all anymore. And that was the death knell for local shippers. If you got a small industry, you could take and receive a boxcar or a few a month. It's not worth the railroad's time to fool with you anymore.
Yeah, Dan.
That's like this yard that.
What's
I was
that,
gonna say, that's like this yard that I'm actually modeling, that I'm working on now, is based on North Yard in, technically it's in Saginaw, a suburb of Fort Worth. Was originally a Burlington Northern yard, and it was a division point yard in its day.
Yeah.
Now, of course, BNSF is merged. Santa Fe had a yard literally half a mile from this, which is the larger yard, and that's kind of the classification yard. And this is basically a citywide industrial switching yard. I mean, they pull in. They will pull in full trains here, although they don't really originate very many. But they break them down and send them in locals or in transfers in every direction around the city from this yard. But it was a small enough yard that you could do a little bit of justice to it on a layout. But it's a good example of what once was kind of a major player, which now is maybe what you consider more of a minor player, because it's the it's the local yard now, whereas it used to be serve a much bigger role.
But that's what we can model. Part of I wanted to model the Pocahontas famous 2-track main line, but it's just not possible. The trains would move over the line so quickly that no matter how much track I could pack in the room, they would pass over at 70 miles an hour, scale miles an hour, they'd pass over in no time. Modeling the more minor, diminutive parts of the railroad are much more achievable depending on the fidelity of the prototype replication that you're seeking. If you really want to operate something that is prototype filling, even if you made it up, fictitious railroad or otherwise, if you want it prototype filling, the more diminutive branch lines, local operations are feasible. But even then, most classification yards that would exist in any time post, the 1920s or something, in HO scale would be 4, 5, 6 feet wide if they were compressed at a quarter of the actual scale. So when I do eventually grow this land in scope and size, I will model the yard that's at the end of the line that I am modeling right up to, but I'm not trying to model it because I don't have the room. And when I do, the only way to do that is to have walkways down both sides, put the photo backdrops on the back side of the aisle, much the way Lex Parker did on his ON3 layout. If you've seen that, you can walk down both sides of the yard. It's one of the very few ways to arrange anything approximating a prototype terminus, branch terminus, classification, or division point yard.
Well, two of the layouts I'll operate on this weekend up in Kansas City have their main yard that are set up exactly that way. John Atchison and Joe Casper both
awesome.
Have 70s era. One's a BN, one's Santa Fe, both Kansas City yards. And of course they're in scale layouts, but they're both set up that one. In fact, I'm pretty sure Joe Casper's models. What's the name of that yard in Kansas City? I'm pretty sure he models it track for track.
Wow!
But it is massive. It is a massive yard.
You can do some things like that in scale, but even then, anything close to prototype. I mean, even with reasonable compression, acceptable compression, there is a point with selective compression where you can just out-compress the ability to operate anything like the prototype. The railroad requires at least a certain amount of track, depending on what task you're trying to do. That's why for most of us building small railroads, modeling very diminutive branches that seeked slow train, and a few train service is much more reasonable to maintain that prototype feel, even if you do have to compromise some, obviously. I hadn't seen any. I've only seen a few people with yards with aisles split both sides. That seems to be a really smart way to handle that, and that's only the last few months really thought that.
Yeah, they have one. I know Joe's is literally an aisle on both sides. John has an aisle on one side, and then I guess you'd call it an aisle on the other. There's a there's a hole, and there's an industrial switching area on the other side of that hole. But yeah, it literally you can stand and access it from both sides, both cases. Yeah.
I thought about that Lex Parker.
Hey, gentlemen, I think we're going to start working on the layout, and we want to drill a couple of things before it gets a little too late here. But we having you guys on and seeing you guys again. Appreciate it.
Yeah,
get back to work.
Good seeing you. Come on back anytime.
Absolutely. Take care, guys. Enjoy it.
All right,
see you, Joe.
Yeah, Marty just popped in. I tell you what, we're getting close to the end here, but Sam, can you hear me?
Yeah.
All right. You want to tell us a little bit about what you're doing right there?
Okay, so I want to make a disclaimer that I have no idea what I'm doing. I'm just kind of right now. So I'm gluing down the first track that I've ever done ever, and while I'm using Elmer's glue, and I basically am doing it exactly the way that I did my cork, which is probably not good, but I'm laying my turnout and a piece of track right where my wiring is.
All right, now I'm going to tell you something. You glue that turnout down, if you ever have to replace it, you're going to have a hard time.
Okay. I did research on this Elmer's, and I found out that if you spray warm water, it will come up. So hopefully that's true, and if I have a problem with it, turn out to do that.
But you could spray it with alcohol. If you soak now, granted, I think the turnouts get glued down with the ballast process anyway. Just make sure that you stay clear of where the point throw bar is, and you'll probably be safe. What I normally, and I do think we have to spike, nail, glue, or otherwise adhere a turnout in the middle because of the curving diverging point puts a turnout in a bind and they want to pop up in the middle. And the frog is already a spot that's prone to derailments. Short of other extenuating circumstances, if you have 50 derailments in a year on your layout, 49 of those will have happened on a turnout. So I do think you should put at least a dot of glue in the center, or a nail, or a spike.
Sam, for my layout, what I did is all my straight lines coming out of the turnout and before the turnout are glued. So I didn't glue any of my turnouts. And besides, if you're going to ballast, the ballast with the glue will keep it down anyway.
It will.
Until you're ready to ballast, there's no need for glue.
It will.
And if there's a problem or you want to change it, at least you won't scrap, you won't ruin a $25 or $30 turnout.
I agree with
I'm gonna weigh in on the other side because I glue every stinking one of them down with latex caulk, and they never move. But I don't build. I'll admit I don't build it with the plan to have to rebuild it, and I've had to take a turnout or two out, and it can be done. Obviously, it would be easier if you just pulled it out, but it can be done.
But it's all about what are you building for? If it's built for disposability or for reuse of components when you destroy the entire layout, if you're building a chainsaw layout or something, I understand just putting a nail or a spike prior to the frog or something. But if you're building a layout that is meant to be permanent, you expect that it is going to stay together or whatever. I am more inclined to think gluing them down. Not to mention when you ballast it, it's glued down anyway. Yeah, alcohol will break it loose. But the chance of you reusing turnouts, you may reuse some of them, but you end up with a lot more trouble. But my only question, especially with what you're talking about, Lloyd, is when you're ballasting, how do you make sure that the turnout isn't crowding in the middle? And for a reference point, Miles Hale on his Model Railroad Academy channel, I'm pretty sure, but it might have been a Trainmasters video, I think he talks about that problem with turnouts crowding in the center, which increases derailments. So if you just leave the turnout loose and then you come in and ballast it, how are you keeping the ballast from just not only taking that crowd that's already a problem and just making that crowd permanent?
It's called the spacing between your turnout and your track. Of course, if you're going to put it extremely tight, yeah, you might have that problem. But I can tell you, out of my 96 turnouts, none of them were glued. And now that I've ballasted, it's fixed.
Well, we'll see in time. The best reference that I've worked from it, and is what Miles was talking about. That made the most sense in the world to me. We're talking about some physics. The curvature of those rails is going to cause that turnout to crowd. It's going to pop up. And it doesn't take much before that really becomes a problem if your track is not level and you're crowding. And the worst thing is it's crowding right at about that frog. Now, Gil Freitag, famous model railroader, spectacular, well-known model railroader, and Miles quotes him a lot, especially when it comes to track work. He's the guy who Miles says ballast everything. As soon as you get the track laid, everything's working and working well, ballast it. Glue it, set it in stone, ballast all the way through the tunnels and everything. Everything becomes rigid and solid, and all the whatever is working stays working. That makes a lot of sense to me. That's a really good debate. But if you glue that crown in, and everybody should go watch that video where Miles talks about that. If I can find it, I'll post it on our Facebook. I will find it and post it on our Facebook channel. But that's a significant concern. But the only thing it takes to fix that is one nail or one spike in the ties prior to ballasting. Then ballast it and jerk that nail out of it, or put a single spot of glue.
And the way I see it, I have my layout is not level, actually right behind the camera. It's not exactly level. There's a space in between the foam. So my cork followed that, and my turnout will too. And if in a couple of years, when I go and tear this layout apart, I have to replace some turnouts when I eventually put it back together, then so be it. I'll switch to fast tracks because I've heard that they're great in every single way, and I'll just switch it over.
Well, and it's not about it causing damage. It's about the train's not running. So right. The argument is not that, in my opinion, about this, or the discussion about this is not that turnout could potentially be damaged by this treatment. What I'm saying is, if you get the wrong results, and over a period of time through all the changes, most of the experienced model runners will have suggested that what's going to happen is you're going to have a spot that every time the train goes by, it uncouples or it derails at that spot. So if you have a low spot, just shimmy. These are not hard problems to resolve. Just I say that must say that word in a pretty funny way, but I'm Appalachian, so I say a lot of words in funny ways. So
no, I'm laughing at Marty. He's down in Australia. He says 103 degrees, 96% humidity because they got a storm coming in. He asked me to enlarge Lloyd's picture so he'd feel cooler.
That would do it.
Well, he should click on it himself. There's a big little arrow thing.
No, it won't work. I'm streaming my monitor, so you can't enlarge it.
If you're watching, you don't have that.
I see.
I have to enlarge it.
Yeah. Oh, that's right. If he was in this room, he could have done it.
That's right. Here. Yep. You're not thinking fourth dimensionally, Marty.
Yeah.
Well, thing of it is, he's going to have to go to the chat room because we're at an hour 20 minutes now. So, because we got a little going here towards the end, so I'll just let it go. Wanted to get Michael's question answered too on the different yards. So, just a reminder for everybody, G Plus is going away. That's not a big deal to us because we, YouTube Model Builders is on Facebook and YouTube as YouTube Model Builders. So once G Plus is gone, you'll be doing all your posting in the YouTube community and also on the Facebook. Now, they are saying that if there's anything in G Plus you want to keep, download it now because come April the 2nd you won't be able to do that. So just
we'll
let
go
everybody
to internet heaven. Google Plus will be in internet heaven.
But appreciate everybody coming in. Appreciate everybody over here in the chat too for being here tonight. And real quick rundown. Let's see what we got here. All right, next week we got a busy week. February the 12th is a fine scale build. February 13th, that's February 12th will be a Tuesday. February 13th is a Wednesday. That's Who's Big Bill talking to. He's going to have creative rails on that night. Of course, you got this show on Thursday night. And then the following week, on February the 20th, we've got Joe's Train Room. So put those on the calendar so you don't miss out on them. But hey, if you do, that's okay. All our shows are recorded, and you can find them on the YouTube channel at YouTubeMallBuilders.com. We have playlists on all of them. So y'all have a good weekend, and we shall see you next week on Tuesday night for Andy's Fine Scale show. So have a good one. Where am I at?
Bye.